As with many of my favourite Black Mirror episodes, Eulogy should come with a little warning at the start that says tissues required. Paul Giamatti made me cry in this episode, and that's a good thing. He's absolutely delivering a masterclass. Patsy Ferran matches him, but really it is Paul's show. But from the start, Phil is very much portrayed as this curmudgeonly, grumpy kind of guy. He corrects the guy from Eulogy about the pronunciation of his surname. And as we see, there is a sort of, I'm not necessarily justifying how he is, but we can understand how he's become the way he is. And of course we get the return of the nubbin. I think it's been in almost every episode this season. This time it's called the Guide Disc, which obviously houses a version, as we learn later, of Kelly, Carol's daughter. But as someone who grew up pre-digital, I got it. The moment when it's like, I don't have it all stored in the cloud. I existed in a world before smartphones and everything like that. I was debating doing it, but I don't have the permission of the people involved, therefore I'd be very uncomfortable doing it. But I have, specifically I can think of at least a Polaroid that is in a shoebox in the room I'm in now, of an ex. It's not in the cloud, it's not anywhere digital, it exists in a physical format. Now, does it mean I'll get it out? No. It's just a part of my history that I keep around. Doesn't mean I like my own current partner less, but it is just that part of my history that I don't want to let go of. I don't want to forget. It is a part of my story. But I did mention before Patsy Ferran, and when she first appeared, all I got in my head straight away was the kind of Greek oracles. It gave that vibe with what she's wearing, plus she is of Spanish-British descent, so that Mediterranean blood might be sort of leaning me towards that way, but I loved her performance here. But the things when we're in the pictures, when we can't see, or when he can't recall certain details, this sort of blocky PS1 graphic kind of thing, I like that approach, rather than just having it as a blur or something. Because it is a computer construction, it makes sense that it would be polygonal in nature. But like I said at the start, he starts very bitter, and as he's going through these pictures, these memories, he sort of softens. This eulogy process, if you will, it gets him to go from where he started, which is very bitter, very focused on his hurt, to growing to see an alternative way of looking at it. One of the moments that I really took note of in the first viewing and when I rewatched it for this is the moment that he's kind of admonished a little by Kelly. And this happens quite throughout, but it starts with a look, it grows over time. But the moment that really got me is when it's the whole, I got her to change to keyboards because cello wouldn't suit the sound. I'm going to call her Kelly, even though she's the guide technically until the end. But Kelly does rightly just pull him up on it. It's like, right, that's what you wanted, but you wanted her to sacrifice her dreams for yours. Is that fair? Is that right? And generally it's not. Sometimes you might have a partner who's like, I'm fine with it, but there's no guarantee. And one of the things I thought about with the guide, the fact she says I'm generated, I'm not coded, instantly brought into mind things like San Junipero, Hotel Reverie, as we've seen recently, White Christmas, all these things where virtual versions of people are created. I wouldn't be surprised if Tuckersoft is behind, or Tucker, whatever, is behind Eulogy as a company. I did go frame by frame through the brochure to see if I could see anything Easter eggy, but there was nothing really there. As I've said before, one of the key parts of earlier Phil, if you will, in the episode is this hatred, this grudge, this bitterness. And hatred is by nature very destructive. We see it obviously in the photos, when he scratched them out and things like that. But even when it's the postcards and it's like, oh, maybe I can get some data off those, flip, oh no. It's like, yeah, I was thorough. I'm not, again, defending what he's done, but it is entirely understandable. He feels hurt, therefore, how does he deal with it? Sometimes you go one way. He went the way of absolutely scorched earth, is the phrase he uses himself. Just destroy her presence. But then we realise that she really did care. She went and chased her dreams. He was bitter about it because she wasn't around anymore. And whilst he made a bad decision on his birthday, she tried to call while she was, across the pond, totally different time zone. She made effort. She went out of her way at an unreasonable hour to call him on his birthday and got the person that he had that one night stand with. You can totally understand her withdrawing from him, but she still, even later on as we find, she still held that love. She still wanted that connection. It was an indiscretion, and over time she, softened on that. Obviously she made her own indiscretion, as we learn as well, but a good relationship can weather bad events. Obviously it's very subjective whether people are happy to try and work through any instances of cheating, or whether the first one is, that's it, the relationship's broken. That is an entirely personal choice. I'm not saying one way is inherently right or the other, it's whatever's right for the person. But Phil couldn't move past it, but Carol was the kind of person who was willing to work through it. One of those moments where, I said before, I sometimes like to guess what's coming and have that reveal prepared, so I'm like, oh, I can see how this has come to it whilst it's happening. And this was one of them. I didn't know fully, I wasn't 100% sure, but I was like, there's something about the guide, something here. I wasn't sure if it was Carol, because he surely would have remembered her face, so that wasn't likely, but it's got to be someone connected, because she's very defensive of her. I didn't go to daughter necessarily until the restaurant scene, when he's on about the fact that, he was there, he got the champagne ready, all of this prep to make this proposal. And she didn't want to drink, she looked different. This whole performance, every episode that I cover, I put a clip in. And I think the only clip I could ever put in is parts of Paul Giamatti's performance as he's explaining how crushed he was by that rejection. So let's have a look at it.
And now the waitresses are shooting looks over because they know I'm there to propose, so I'm on display. My cheeks are burning, my throat is dry, so I'm drinking more. And then in the end, I ask her, just say something. Say anything.
If that doesn't bring tears to your eyes, if that doesn't make you feel for this man, even though he is a grudge-holding, grumpy guy, this is why. This is the hurt that sent him down that path. And again, right or wrong is not in question here. I'm not going to debate that. This is Phil's story. This is how it panned out. Yes, this is very I-centric. It's I'm hurt. She did this to me. And Kelly says the same. But this is understandable. Being a psychology student, I understand that emotional pain like this rejection, registers in the brain the same way as physical pain. He has been stabbed. It's why we say when you're betrayed by a close friend, you're stabbed in the back. It is that physical hurt. That's how he feels here. The wounded dog claim, or the comment that Kelly gives, is appropriate, and he is absolutely distraught. But Kelly will not let this lie. She has to make him understand, because of the fact that she's part of Kelly's brain, if you will, generated from that engram, if you will, that maybe Carol's point of view matters here. And then we have a great moment as well where it's like, why didn't you say all this before? You've told me to skip the intro. It again shows the character. There's a lot of contrivances, I will say that now, in this episode. Things like, oh, it happens to be, she happened to have a daughter, but it wasn't his, so it's fine. She also took up the cello, so we can bring that in. The whole skip the intro. There's a lot of things, and even the note later on, there's a lot of things that just are convenient, like the phrase Deus Ex Machina. They move the plot forward out of nowhere sometimes, especially the letter, to be honest. But I always say that if the story is served and it isn't harmed by stuff like this, that should trump logic. And here it does. It absolutely serves to make this story impactful, because we have a moment of, I don't know, like a lifeline. He thought he'd destroyed everything, but all of a sudden we've got this picture, this disposable camera. So he takes that, gets that one picture developed, and realises there's a letter, which the maid conveniently tied it into a pile, so he didn't actually destroy it. Not everything was scorched earth. And this is the benefit of not having everything online. I don't think that's the intended message of this episode, but it is an interesting takeaway. If everything's digital in the cloud, once you delete it, if you scrape that data absolutely clean, there are bits of software out there that can absolutely get rid of stuff, then it's gone forever. But if you've got a physical copy somewhere, it's not. If you've got it backed up some way, it's that lifeline. And it gives him that realization that he missed out on a life where he could have been, maybe not the biological father to Kelly, but he could have been the father figure in her life, because Brian sounds like such a catch, as they say. I do think that's a nice dig. There's a bit of social commentary here, like he was a conspiracy theorist who died of COVID. The subtext is not sub here, it's very much text. But I appreciate it. It's a moment of levity after a very heavy scene. And we finally know that he didn't not know the cello piece. It wasn't that there is no way to get hold of it. Yes, it's not on a service like Spotify or whatever, but he has a tape and he has a way of playing it. And again, that moment at the end where he's just listening to her and recalling the good that happened. It was beautiful. This is an episode about not holding on to grudges. This is an episode about learning to process things healthily. This is an episode about a relationship. It's an episode about making the wrong or coming to the wrong conclusions. It's also an episode about learning to get through that. It's about understanding what brought you to this point, understanding other people's perspectives, and growing through that. I'm going to finish with one thing that I saw. Again, I always like to avoid stuff, but this one just happened across as I was trying to look up something else. On Reddit, and a few people have said a similar thing, so I can't really attribute one specific person, but I did see a comment saying that eulogy could be for the relationship, not just for Carol. And I think that works. The episode title is about their relationship as much as it's about her, and I think that's beautiful. So next week I'm going to struggle, I think, for an analysis in the same way. There's stuff there, it's very surface level, because it's mostly a fun follow-up to an older episode, but we'll see what happens. So I hope you'll join me for that finale. Then I've got a few more projects, and yeah, it's busy, even though I've done with my uni work. But I hope you'll join me for everything coming down the line. Until next time, as always, thank you for watching, take care, and be kind to yourself and others.